Well, good morning, everyone. Good-looking group. Yeah, you should be proud of yourselves. You done good. You clean up well. All right, so I am the president and CEO of Unity Worldwide Ministries, and a lot of what I do is work to support the 650 ministries that we have around the world. Did you know we had 650 ministries around the world? We do. So as you travel around, you can actually hop onto our website and find a local Unity ministry near you wherever you're traveling and checking it out. And I'll be going to visit our ministries in Hawaii in just a few weeks. Oh. I know, poor me. Poor me. It's a rough job. But we really just do work to support our ministries and our Unity leaders out there, and we credential and we do the ordination, all that process to create the future of our movement as it's moving forward. So I'm very blessed to be in this position. I've had a wild ride, and I was born and raised in Unity, so I come with a little bit different perspective than some others might have on this whole movement. So today I'm going to share a little bit with you of my journey, if that's okay. Is that okay? Yeah. And I will preface this by saying this is my journey that I'm going to share with you. This is not me saying this is what your journey should be or this is what you should be doing. I'm just going to share the relationship I've had with God in my life and the things that God has asked of me in my life, and some of the realizations that have come along in that process. So we'll just go ahead and get going, if that's okay with you all. So a question that has plagued my mind since I was probably in my late teens, because I grew up in Unity, so I was in YOU, just like the youth was up here. I'd go on stage begrudgingly. Oh, yeah. My mom would make me sing with my brothers and sisters. Whole process, but I've learned to love it. But the question of what do you need to be happy had really been on my mind since a very young age in my life. Because in Unity, we were taught, you don't really need external things to be happy. You're really taught about this internal experience that should be going on. But there's a lot of pressures from the outside world saying the exact opposite. Has anybody else noticed that? Okay, so 6 of you are with me. So the 6 of us, we're going to step outside. We're going to have our own little group. But it really has been a question that was on my mind. And as you grow up and you go and you start to enter the world, I graduate high school and you've got a guidance counselor and they say, all right, well, you're going to go on to college and we got to prepare you for college. You got to take these classes, and you get to college, you got another guidance counselor and they're talking about, all right, well, we got to design you for your career. What kind of career you're going to have? And you sort of get on that track, and then you get out and you start to step into that career if you're following the prescribed path, which I did pretty much letter to the law, exactly 4-year degree. Here I go, I'm on my career. I'm now doing my career, and I'm making pretty good money, and I stop, and I'm busy, and I'm not getting to enjoy my life much, and I say, wait a minute, this plan doesn't seem to be unfolding in the direction I thought it would. I assumed this was a path to happiness, but the path that was being laid out before me was for stress, confinement, and really living for my debt. Because as I went through that process, of course, you're going to have student payments, and then you're going to eventually say you got to get a house. You're going to start working on getting that house, and you're going to have a debt with your house. And of course, you're going to get that house and live in that neighborhood. You got to have a car that matches that neighborhood. So then you got to get that car, and then now you've got that car, and well, you probably need a second car because now you're married, and she wants a car too. So now you got 2 cars, and it just sort of starts to compile until you're standing there going, I'm basically working to pay for debt, for things that I don't really enjoy that often. I remember sitting at work thinking about I wanted a new car. And I thought, how often am I actually in my car? At least 90 to 95% of my day, my car just sits either in a garage or in a parking lot. I really only enjoy my car for maybe a half hour to an hour out of a day, 1/24 of the day. And I was really having this realization, how much happiness does this bring me? And I actually went to test drive a new car, and I sat in that car, and I was like, it's got a steering wheel, it's got a shifter, it's got a gas pedal, just like my other car. I'm inside it, so I don't see how cool it looks from the outside. So what have I really gained here? It's going to sit without me in it for most of the day anyway. So I actually didn't buy that car. I went back to my old car. But that's when I was really starting to think about, what do you need to be happy? Because this path that all these experts, my guidance counselor has set me on, and the world has set me on, didn't lead to happiness. it led to debt and stress and worry and really confinement is what I found. And so I get back to my unity principles and I go, this is not working. I need to just sort of get back to what I know is true, which is me and the happiness inside me that I can unfold without all these things. So I would sort of scale down my life. And then 5 years later, I'd find out I've done it again. I had now bought a new car, or at least a new car. I had now gotten into another house. I had now got a new thing, and I couldn't afford my life once again. And I go, how do I keep doing this? Why do I keep doing this? Every time I have this realization, I'm like, not going to do this again. A few years later, here I am yet again in the same scenario. And I came to the realization that it's really hard to beat every single human being in the world who's telling you the exact opposite of what unity teaches you. Even having been born and raised in unity, once I was in the world, every single human being was telling me the exact opposite of what I knew to be true. So that's a really difficult force to push against. Well, there was a very smart individual. I don't know if you've heard of this individual, Albert Einstein. Anyone heard of this random guy? He said, a calm and humble life will bring more happiness than the pursuit of success and the constant restlessness that comes with it. You would think when someone that smart steps out into the world stage and says that, we'd all go, all right, everybody stop. The smartest human being on the planet just said this: let's reevaluate our systems. Let's reevaluate how we're doing our society, because clearly this individual should have a rough idea of how we're going off course. But instead we go, that'd make a cool meme, and we put it online and we like it. And we go about our day. But this just rings so true for how I was living my life. It was not calm. It was not humble. It was constant restlessness. I was constantly trying to keep up with the Joneses. I remember I was making $15 an hour, starting to work in LA in the film industry. My goal was to make $25 an hour. Just arbitrary, random goal I had, and I was working my way up in the ministry, or in the ministry, in the movie industry. Wow, that almost goes together. Yeah. Movie industry, ministry. It's amazing. Weird. I did both, so now they're becoming one in my brain. Working up in the movie industry, and I was super in debt, I remember at one point, and I realized I was making $27.50 an hour. And I went, oh my goodness, I blew past the point I thought would be when I would have so much money I wouldn't even know what to do with it. I'm in more debt than when I was making $15 an hour, and I had less time than when I was making $15 an hour, and I was enjoying my life less than I was having when I had less. So there's really these powerful realizations I kept having, and it happened 3 times in my life where I'd stop and go, why have I done it again? It's a super frustrating experience to go through. I'm sure some of you have had that realization of, did this really pay off? Am I really getting the benefits of this work I've put into this? I've followed the prescribed path the world has put before me, but I didn't stop to think, well, wait a minute, they never said this leads to happiness. My guidance counselor never said, this is how we get you on a path to happiness. In high school, just this is on the path how we get you into college. And in college, this was a path of how we get you into a career. And then once I was in my career, this is how we're on the path to have you climb the ladder. And my assumption kept being was, oh, at the end of that path is happiness. But they never said that, right? They weren't liars. They didn't say, oh, you will be happy, because most of them probably were not happy themselves. And most of the people guiding us in life, they themselves are not happy. They don't have joy. Have you noticed that? But we still have this idea, this pinnacle, and we don't seem to let it go. Even though we see our superstars, they're supposed to be the absolute end-all, be-all of this plan of the American dream, our superstars are committing suicide. They're addicted to drugs and alcohol and all these other vices. And we don't stop at that point and go, this path does not lead to happiness. We just go, I want that. I want a piece of that misery, because that's the highest misery anyone can get in this experience. I want to be at the top. So that's what we shoot for. Even though logically, if we stop and go, that doesn't make sense. Well, the issue, as Mr. Miyagi, another brilliant individual, though fictional, still brilliant, said, focus, Daniel's son, if you remember from the Karate Kid series, focus. I realized my life was out of focus. If I didn't have a clear focus of what I was trying to accomplish, then other people got to decide for me the direction I was going in. And say that again, if I didn't have a clear focus in my life for the direction I wanted to go in, other people would put me on a track in the direction they wanted to go in. And I looked back on my life, I saw that happening over and over again, because I didn't know exactly where I was trying to get to, which should have been authentic joy and happiness. Because I didn't really have that as my guide star, other people would come into my life as an expert or advisor or whatever they were and put me on a track that they decided on. And I'd just kind of go, well, you must know, and I'd start walking that direction until I got miserable and said, clearly you didn't know. But I was just following along. And that's really what we find ourselves doing so much in life, is just following along with whoever seemed to tell us what to do. Because we ourselves don't have that focus to go, no, I've got a plan for my life. I've got a direction I'm going in. And whether you've got one for me or not is somewhat irrelevant, because I've got my own. So I've really had this many times in my life, and it's really caught me in moments where I get deep reflection and deep understanding of what I'm trying to accomplish. So if we can go to the next slide. So Mother Teresa, anyone heard of Mother Teresa? I'm just never sure my demographic who I'm working with here. You're like, Mother Teresa, is that his mother? She said, live simply. She said, live simply. Again, you would think someone as brilliant as Mother Teresa says, live simply. We go, maybe something to that. But again, we turn it into a meme, we put it online, we like it, we move on. She said, live simply, which really, when I hear that, causes me want to stop and say, what does she mean by that? What does she truly mean by that? What is her message for my life when she says that? So I started to think about, does the way I live my life align with my beliefs and my priorities? So I had unity principles steeped into me from youth, but I wasn't necessarily living them when I went out into the world and did my worldly things. So I started to question, does the way I live, does it align with my beliefs and my priorities? First, I have to understand what my priorities are. And for many times, my priority was success and money and accomplishment and all the surface things. But if my true priorities were not that, it was authentic joy and happiness. So I'd have to check, is my life actually in alignment with my priorities and my beliefs? Well, this caused me to really evaluate my life and what was going on. So in that process, I had a realization, and I want to share a verse from the book of Mark, which does a phenomenal job of speaking to this, the situation I found myself in. And to preface this, in the book of Mark, you have a father who's brought his child to the disciples to try to get this child healed. And the father thought the child was possessed. And we know today that maybe perhaps that child just had a mental illness or was having epilepsy, whatever it might have been. But the father at that time thought the child was possessed, brings it to the disciples. Disciples are unable to heal this child, so they sort of move it up the chain, and now they bring this child to Jesus. And so this is where we pick up with the father coming, bringing the child to Jesus. Jesus said to him, if you are able, all things can be done for the one who believes. He's speaking to the father now. Just think of this scenario. The father has come desperate to heal his child. And if you've had a child who's been ill, you know you're willing to do pretty much anything to heal your child. It is one of the most difficult scenarios to be in. So Jesus says to the father, if you are able, all things can be done for the one who believes. Immediately the father of the child cried out, I believe, help my unbelief. And I just love this moment right here because it is so true for, I think, and I'll say for myself and maybe for you as well. I believe, but I don't believe. And think of what the Father has realized just in his own statement here. He's telling Jesus, no, I believe. But even as he says those words, he goes, but help my unbelief. Because he knows he doesn't believe. And now he's just realized that Jesus says, your belief is affecting the health of your child. And all of a sudden the father goes, oh, darn. My consciousness is affecting my child. And Jesus is saying, basically, I can't do anything as long as your consciousness doesn't believe I can do anything. And that's why the disciples couldn't heal this child, because the father didn't believe. He believed, he didn't believe in the power that he had in his own consciousness, the power that he had in his child to heal itself, and the power of God moving in and through in all things as wholeness. He was coming hoping that some power outside of him, the disciples could heal his kid, some power outside of him that Jesus would heal his kid, but that's not how it works. Jesus continually said, it is your faith that makes you whole, which means you've got to believe in yourself. You've got to actually believe. You can't just say you believe, you've got to actually believe. And this is such a real moment in the Bible. Sometimes I go, is the Bible real? Did this really happen? And then I see a moment like that, and I go, that is a real moment. That absolutely happened. You can feel that father's pain and realizing as he's speaking, I believe, but help my unbelief. I want my child to be well. Help my unbelief. And I think that's where so many of us lie on our spiritual journey. I believe, but I don't believe. Do you hear me? I say I believe in God, but I don't really believe in God. So for me, I said, if I actually believe in God, which I do, then God must become a priority in my life. I can't just say I believe in God, and then if someone looked at my average day, they go, he doesn't believe in God. The way he's living his life, he doesn't believe in God. I'd have to shift my life so if someone saw my life on an average day, they'd go, yeah, that dude genuinely believes in God. If I don't have a life that reflects that, then I'm not authentically living into my beliefs. So then I have to ask myself, what then in my life needs to shift to align with that belief and priority? I really was taking my life to task. See, if I genuinely want authentic joy and happiness, and I genuinely believe in God, I would have to shift my life to match those priorities. Does that make sense? I couldn't just say it anymore. I couldn't just say, yeah, I get it when I'm in church. I couldn't just be inspired by the message and go about my life again. I would have to actually change my life to align with what I say I believe in and the priorities that I have. So what would I have to shift? One, I'd have to dedicate myself to a spiritual practice. Not just sometimes, not just on Sunday morning when we did a meditation, not just every once in a while when I thought about it and I was bored. Every single day, I would have to have a consistent spiritual practice if I truly believed in this beautiful thing we call the divine, we call God. You know, experts talk about to master a musical instrument takes 10,000 hours of practice. How many hours of practice do you think it takes to master life? Probably more than 10,000 hours. So if I want to master life, I need to start logging some hours in my practice. If I want my life to improve until we reflect the possibilities that Jesus said, greater works you can do, if I want to live into that experience, I've got to start logging some hours in practice every single day. If I truly believe in God, if I truly have a priority for joy and authenticness. The second one is dedicating myself to a spiritual community. I realized I was working against every single other human being on the planet who was telling me the opposite of what unity teaches. There's no way I'm going to win that battle. I hate to say battle. There's no way I'm going to win that conversation. There's no way I'm going to push against that by myself. I do not personally have the willpower alone to have a belief system against everything else everyone believes. I've got to have people around me that believe like I believe and support me on my path on this journey. So I'm not constantly using my energy to remind myself, that's not true, that's not how the world works. That's not true, that's not how the world works. I can't listen to that, I can't listen to that. I've got to be around people that are talking like I talk, that believe like I believe, so that when I say, you know what, I'm not feeling well. I'm going to check my consciousness and see what might be creating this. So then instead of them going, I got to get you to the emergency room, you're probably dying. I don't have the willpower to fight that every time I say, I got a little scratchy throat. I want to be around a group of people that say, hey, let's pray on that. Maybe a little bit more meditation. Maybe you need to relax. Maybe you need some time away. A community that understands how I'm trying to live my life, so I'm not always pushing against this friction of the world saying I'm crazy. That's why spiritual community is so important, to surround ourselves with like-minded individuals that are helping along this journey instead of causing more friction on this path. The third thing I really realized I'd have to do is dedicate myself to living unity principles. If I say I'm a person of unity, I want someone to be able to recognize that no matter where I am at any point in time in the community. Not just on Sunday morning. I want people to be able to come up to me and say, what do you got going on? Because I like your vibe. I don't have to come out and advertise. I'm just going to say, hey, I've got this thing called unity. If you want what I got, there's plenty of places you can get it. I just highly recommend it because it's really worked for me. I don't want to have to sit there and put on a fake smile and pretend like everything is all right. I want to be doing the internal work so that no matter where I show up, people go, that person's showing up differently. They don't seem to be terrified by all things happening in the world. They seem to be solution-oriented and coming at it from a place of calm and peace and joy as opposed to fear and conflict and separation. What's the special sauce you got? Because I want it. That's the type of person I want to be showing up as in the world. So we look at, well, what is basic unity principle? Fundamentally, we are all one family as children of God, individualized, unique expressions of the one. I think we probably have all heard some variation of that at some point here in unity. So for me, looking at that statement, I have to say, how will this shift my life knowing I believe it and it is a priority to me? If I truly believed every single human being on this planet is part of my one family, I would be living very differently than I was. I could not judge other people as being less than me, that being more maniacal than me, being more mean than me. I would recognize they are me. I couldn't possibly judge another person if I truly believed in the idea of one family. I'd say, hey, that was me on a bad day. I've been that person. I understand that. So I want to authentically be living into this life. So for me, I came to the conclusion that I will not consciously or subconsciously, directly or indirectly, suppress or harm members of my God family. I add subconsciously, because here I stand as a cisgender, white, heterosexual, male, middle class. That comes with a very strong bias in this society. And I have to check my bias constantly because this society was fundamentally designed by people like me to favor people like me and to suppress people unlike me. And I don't want to be party to that system. I actually want to be actively breaking that system so that we all have a fair shot in this world. Because I have looked back at my life and I have seen the privilege that has come with the color of my skin, my gender, and my social class. We are not all one until we are all treated equitably. We want to jump to this idea of oneness, but if we're sitting in a society and a system that does not treat people equitably, then we're not in a system of oneness. And it's unfair to try to jump to a place of oneness if we're not working to actually create a place of oneness. So yes, we are all one in the eyes of God, but as we're operating this physical experience, we're supposed to be creating that reality in this experience, which means I need to actively be checking my unconscious biases to make sure I am not adding to this problem. This includes all suppressed groups, Black, Indigenous people of color, LGBTQ+, women, people of varying abilities, and animals. All of these are members of my God family. I do not want to suppress or harm people in my family anymore. And I want to make sure I'm not subconsciously suppressing or harming them either. It just doesn't fit in my life anymore. And I came to the conclusion that I'll no longer be party to the suppression, exploitation, or consuming of members of my God family. I just couldn't do it anymore. This is my life. This is my journey. I'm not telling anyone how to live their life. we go out to dinner, my wife and I, with people. And so people invite us out to dinner. We go out lots of places. And we're both vegan, and we don't drink alcohol. And we're really not that fun to take out to dinner. Gluten-free on top of that, so if you want to just be like, we'd like to go out to dinner with you, you're like, we're kind of a hot mess. I try to preface it and I say, God's asked a lot of me, and I'm going to have no judgment of how you eat or what you drink whatsoever, because God has asked a lot of me. But it's very hard for people to come and sit at a table with us and still have wine and still eat whatever they're going to eat without feeling judged, because that's kind of how the world works. It's like, I have zero judgment. God asked this of me, not of you. Whatever God's asked of you is between you and God. But this is what I came to, and it came through decades of my life. Slowly, God would ask more of me, ask me to stand up more, to stand up taller in my life, and to be authentic with what I was saying. I just wanted to be authentic. I wanted to be an authentic human being. When you look at the world today, you just see so much lying and inauthenticity. I just don't want to be part of that system. There's enough of that already out there, and I don't think we can handle any more of it. Just people showing up and being authentic to who they truly are and what they truly believe is so valuable. So what do you really need to be happy? What do you really need to be happy? Well, when my wife and I really started working on this process, we found out it was less and less and less and less that we needed to be happy. When you really stop and say, when is it in my life that I felt the most authentic joy? For me, it was those times, not when I was driving a fancy car, not when I was doing something with an expensive house, it was when I was just doing something very simple that costed practically nothing. And so we get to what Mother Teresa fully said. She said, live simply so that others may simply live. Look at the perspective that she had in the third world nations that she was working in. As you can imagine, she's working with people that are just trying to feed their kids that day. And she's looking at the rest of us and she's going, come on, people. Can we just calm down the gluttony a little bit and share with others? I mean, this family can't even eat today. Could we just scale down how much we have in our lives to share a little bit with the rest of the world? That's what I hear her saying right here. Can you just live simply? Not only to share with others, but it's going to bring more joy into your life as well. It's a simple formula. And so I listen when I hear great minds say something like this, and I do try to live simply, and I want to live simply. And so my wife and I have been working on this process for years, and really getting back to what exactly makes us happy. And when we really started this process, we had a 5-bedroom home in Las Vegas, just my daughter and I. That's a lot of bedrooms for 3 people. And we said, this is ridiculous. It's a lot of space that we really don't need. I kept getting upsold by realtors who say, you're going to want to entertain, you're going to need an extra bedroom, you're going to need space to entertain. And I don't like entertaining, so I don't know how they kept upselling me on that. I don't want anybody sleeping in my house, so why do I need this spare bedroom? There's plenty of hotels here. I love you, but go stay at a hotel. But I keep buying houses that have, that's a big kitchen for entertaining, a space for entertaining. I don't want to entertain you. It's not my job. So we came to those, we had the conversations. Why do we have a spare bedroom? Nobody sleeps in it and we don't want them to. So we really talked about what do we really need. So we downsized to a 2-bedroom apartment. And that meant we had to get rid of a lot of stuff. And we looked at all of our stuff we had and said, does this really bring us authentic joy? Like Mary Callender would ask us to do. Not Mary Callender. Marie Kondo, thank you. Marie Callender makes pies. Marie Kondo.
That brings me joy.
There's a crossover there. I think we could. There's a merger acquisition of the 2 corporations. Anyway. Marie Kondo, what brings me authentic joy? And we would just get rid of that stuff. And a lot of that stuff was memorabilia. We go, let's take a picture of it. If we ever want to look at it again, we can pull it up on our phone and go, there it was. That was nice. Because it's just taking up space and storage. And then we're in our 2-bedroom apartment, and we said, we're really not even using this space. We pretty much hang out in the kitchen, and then we go to bed. We don't hang out in the bedroom. We sleep in the bedroom. So after enough time of scaling down, we now wound up in a 180 square foot tiny home. Wow. And we absolutely love it. And we have a 1-in, 1-out rule. If you buy a t-shirt, you got to get rid of a t-shirt because there's no room for that new t-shirt. And it's a great way to live, and it's everything we need. And it's actually forced us out into the community because not everything is in our home. We have to lean on our community and go out to use things. We hang out at coffee shops. Did you know they still have libraries in cities? It's amazing. There's actually libraries in cities still. I didn't know they were there, but I've discovered that. So this has been our journey, and the less junk and nonsense we had in our lives, the more joy that was unfolding in our lives. And you can really see it like the flow of water. When you have a jam, you have a dam, which is all of our junk and stuff that's not only physically here, but it's in our consciousness as well. It's blocking that flow of spirit. And as you start to remove things from that log jam, the flow begins to happen. You have to make room for spirit to flow into your life. That's how it works. And the more we pulled things out of that log jam, the more spirit just began to flow and flow and flow. And now we have so many blessings in our lives, we don't even know what to do with them all. It's crazy. And it's awesome. And we see spirit every single day in our lives showing up. So I want to close out with another brilliant person, Myrtle Fillmore, the co-founder of our movement. She said, true prosperity is not making money or putting out goods or developing property. It is determining what our souls require in order to cause them to unfold more of God. I have found that to be absolutely true in my life. And as I've scaled down, I've had more resources to help other people and to share what I have with other people. And it's allowed me to do this job. I don't have a giant house sitting there that's blowing away air conditioning that I have to worry about. It's an amazing process. I invite you just to consider what your life could be like if you were willing to scale down as well. Not that you have to end up in a tiny home. But just start looking at what authentically brings you joy. Not what society has told you you're supposed to do, but what do you authentically brings you joy. And that's the truth as I experience it. So why don't we take a moment for some meditation. So I invite you, if you're not used to the word meditation, you consider this a time for internal reflection. You can close your eyes if you're comfortable. You can take a nice deep breath and allow yourself to drop from that head thinking analytical space down into that heart just feeling and being space. Sometimes we call it the still small voice. We might call it the Christ within. We might call it intuition. If we are willing to quiet the mind, to slow down the chatter of the world, and to tune in, we create a space for that voice to speak. You might imagine it as the voice of a soft-spoken child in a room of adults that are chattering away. You'd have to quiet each individual adult to get down to be able to hear that voice of that child. That's the voice we have constantly guiding us. But it really requires us to slow down and to tune in to hear it. We have an opportunity at any point in our life, no matter how stressful, chaotic, distracted it might be, to step aside, take a breath, slow down and connect. to breathe into this still space and to just be and allow. And so often the right and perfect solution presents itself. And so we're going to allow ourselves to do that now. As a thought comes to mind that might be a distraction, we simply bless it. We thank it for its effort to help. But we tell it, you're allowed to take a break. I don't need you now. And release it. These thoughts are not adversaries. They are simply the body's tool to try to help us move forward. And sometimes the body's allowed to take a break as well. So we bless these thoughts when they come, and we simply allow them to release as we become more still and resting into the silence. And with a deep sense of gratitude, we recognize that we could do this at any point in time. And that is a gift from God. And so as we bring ourselves out of this space back into this sanctuary, we allow those thoughts to come in, but only those that serve our purpose, our focus, and our direction. And we hold on to that sense of gratitude and commit ourselves to this week, whenever we get distracted, to allow ourselves to step away and do this process once again. And so it is.